Welcome back to the Garlic Marketing Show. I am Garlic here, and today we're going to talk EOS, the tools that are out there. I talk about Traction Tools, a great software with their head of client strategy, Brittany Myerholtz. Before we get started, this is brought to you by storycruise.com, the ultimate place to find video, to implement those strategies, and find people that know how to create video marketing strategies, videographers that know business. Go to storycruise.com to find them. All right. So Brittany, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you about it because we've had EOS implementers, but there's a lot of people out there that aren't working with the EOS implementer. They're just getting EOS done on their own. And I want to talk a little bit about the software, but how did you get into the world of Traction Tools and EOS? How did you personally do it? Find out about it.
So I applied for a part-time job with Traction Tools, not knowing what it was, about 4 years ago in Chicago. I was working another job that I hated, and I had an entrepreneurial background with my family and everything, and I knew this software had something to do with building businesses, and I was kind of familiar with it. And so I applied, I started working there, quickly went full time, and I was employee probably 7, like very early in the process. So it's been really cool to watch the software grow from where I started to where we are now. And I had used it a little bit. If you're familiar with EOS, there are people who read the book Traction, and they start kind of cherry picking things. They're like, oh, that'll work. And so I had heard the term rocks before. Obviously a scorecard, people have KPIs and they use some semblance of that, but that's how I got into it. I lucked into it, headed off with who at the time was kind of the integrator role, but it was still so young. We're still figuring all that out. And that's been the story ever since. It's a fantastic company, and I feel so lucky that I've been able to grow with it and watch it where it is now. It's crazy.
How important is, because I think you see it, you get an implementer, they're going to do everything. But if, like you said, if someone reads the book, reads Traction by Gino Wickman and, reads Rocket Fuel, and they're like, oh, I'm going to pick this and choose this, and I'm going to do level 10 meetings. And, I might do some rocks. I'm not worried about the scorecard right now. Having seen all these clients go through this, how important is it to do everything that's in there?
I'm biased. I think EOS is so effective that I think it's important that you do everything. I also have seen a lot of clients that turn to the book Traction, or someone gives it to them because they're business owners who are in a really bad spot, or they've grown their business out of sheer determination and force of will, and they've plateaued. So they need some kind of EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. So they need some kind of operating system in place. So if they can even put in something like the level 10 meeting, or they can determine rocks and stop trying to do everything at once and determine their 7 or 8 highest priorities for the next 90 days, that's better than nothing. But I really think, in my opinion, that if you're going to go with EOS, that it should be everyone rowing that boat in the same direction, and really taking on as much of the process as you can. Understanding not everyone can hire an implementer for many reasons. They're fantastic, and I think they're a great investment, obviously, but it's not in the cards for everyone all the time. So I think that if you can really take it step by step and get your VTO in place, get your accountability chart in place, and start running level 10s, you don't have to do everything perfectly, but that's all better than letting chaos reign.
Well, it's great. I mean, yeah, you can't do everything perfectly. Like that's what it is, right? It's constant improvement. Where do you see, because you have a unique vision, a unique place where I think, a lot of people, when you work with the implementer, there's areas that I feel that, we've talked to a lot of them, they focus on, and they're really good at either culture or vision or, and really can nail that down. But you see people that aren't really guided, right? They're guided by the software, but they're kind of left to their own accord. Where do you see people getting stuck?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say with our software, you do not have to work with an implementer. You can self-implement. And so we have a pretty good mix of both. And having an implementer in your corner definitely helps with not getting stuck on some things. The ones who, it seems that there's just a lot of people changes when it comes to EOS in the beginning. And if you have an implementer, you have someone there who's going to kind of force the hand, who's going to make you have those uncomfortable conversations conversations where you're getting the right people in the right seat. There's sometimes times where you find out someone's not a culture fit, especially if you're dealing with a family business. There are a lot of family businesses that turn to EOS. And so it seems like that's probably the part that people will end up avoiding, those very hard to have conversations if they're self-guided versus having it's an objective third party, if you want to think of it, in the room with you, forcing you to say, we're having this difficult conversation. You guys have the same problem you had 3 quarters ago, and it's obvious why that problem is here. Well, if no one's in there, you're all just going to avoid it, and it's easy to do. So that seems to be, having those people discussions seems to be the thing that it's easiest to avoid if you don't have someone forcing you to talk about it.
That's a great point. It's easy, right? It's like, oh, and I see that a lot too. I'm in a lot of entrepreneur groups and work with them, and we're always like, you got to fire that person, or you got to fire that person. And I was in one that it was like 2 years of telling someone you got to fire that person.
Yeah, they bury their head in the sand. That's usually why they're turning to. This is across the board. Anyone who owns a business knows that this stuff happens. You're people, or you have a relationship with that employee. You know their family, and it's hard. It's really hard to do. So I totally get it. I'm just, that seems to be the one that, and it makes the most sense that that's the biggest hiccup, or the thing that puts up the biggest obstacle for people.
It's interesting too, because everyone looks at everything else as the problem. And I see this a lot in marketing. It's either, they've either hired the wrong person internally in marketing, and, we'll walk in and I'm like, and it's hard for us to say, your person here kind of sucks at marketing, because they're going to say we suck. And I'm like, no, I can tell. I've been through this, and you have that conversation like, yeah, this person that kind of helped hire us, they're not good. But the other thing is, I see where people don't identify that bottleneck in marketing internally. And so they look out externally, right? They're like, oh, it's our vendors, or it's this, or it's that. And there's just someone not answering the phone, that's not answering the phone correctly. Yeah. How do we use, like, let's say a traction tools, a software, to identify that and to make sure we have that conversation? How do you see that being used? Because you're talking to clients right there, using it for this kind of stuff.
So for identifying people issues?
Yeah, identifying people issues and getting past them without bringing in an implementer.
So and the software will help you with creating your accountability chart, defining the roles, and we have a people analyzer and a quarterly conversation tool that it's in beta, but we can enable it in your software, and it's free of charge. We just ask that you show us some grace and give us some feedback. But that is going to be one of your best tools. Again, I highly recommend getting an implementer if it's not in the cards and you're trying to do it yourself. Running those quarterly conversations where you have a people analyzer as a result, where you're going to be able to see, if you're familiar with the quarterly conversation, the people analyzer, you're going to be able to see the feedback, right? You're going to be able to see if someone's a culture fit, or if they GWC their role. And if that's happening consistently, then it's kind of like unavoidable to see if you're reviewing this as a leadership team in your quarterly sessions. You can, of course, raise those as issues in your leadership team. And that's kind of, I guess, it at least makes it obvious. So, our software can't force you to do anything with EOS. It just guides, brings the process to life. We can't.
So traction
we don't
tools
have an alert that says fire so-and-so, but it sends them an email. That's probably a little too advanced of a product feature, but
I want that though.
Maybe that's a good product idea. Just a proxy fire. No, that's horrible. I'm just kidding. But maybe you have a wrong HR person if that's the thing you need. It will at least bring it kind of to the top and say, hey, we keep seeing on the people analyzer for everyone to see, we have 3 X's in the GWC bot, or they're not a culture fit and they're on our issues list every 3 weeks. Then that's just going to make it as obvious as we can, I suppose.
Yeah. And which, I mean, I think it's important because, it's like, your foot is hurting, right? And you're walking around, your foot is hurting. If you don't look in there and see that there's a pebble in there, and you're just walking around, it's like, oh, my foot's hurting. What's going on? And you just complain about your foot hurting. But if you eventually look in there and go, oh, I should probably get that pebble out of there. That's what I like about having these types of tools. And, I wish, we started EOS a while ago before there's any of these softwares. And now I'm like, well, where is that accountability? Where did we put, it's like this Google Drive mess of like, we named it this and like, oh yeah, there's our level 10 meeting notes from 2 years ago.
And I have software that you need to try. It is going to make all of that so easy. That is, that's where most of our clients come from. We have a lot that are new to EOS, but a lot that struggle for them when they self-implemented before was they're like, I tried EOS because I was drowning and I tried to do it on a Google Sheet and I added another 2 hours of work to my already insane workload. So the software, they were like, we were successfully able to do it because it does make it a lot easier. Just everything's cloud-based, it's accessible and easy, automated.
My name is Gino Wickman. I decided that I want to start to put great video content out to the world. And so the goal was one great video every week. And so I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
And where do you see the fastest wins? Tell me about some of the successes that you've had with this and like where the fastest wins come in usually for people that are new to the software, because that always intrigues me, because I love the fact that, you're seeing a lot more people, right? You're seeing a lot more than an implementer does who has 10, 20 people. So you're seeing a ton of people come through this and you're seeing more of a law of averages. So, where are you seeing those fast wins?
The fastest wins, one of my favorites is when someone runs their first level 10 in the software. We will upload data. So if you've been running out of a Google Sheet, we'll get your data in there for you. And it can run a level 10 like the first week of their trial. They don't spend 2 weeks figuring out, all of how to move stuff into the software. So that results in a really great level 10 right off the bat. And when I love getting an email that says, holy crap, this was like the best level 10 we've run. We've been trying to do this for a year. This, we stayed on track, all of that stuff. And there's some features in the software that allow you to do things like drop down your issues. I mean, you can attest to this. That's probably one of the biggest things about the level 10, I think, that is a game changer. Other than the software just automating everything and making all the administrative part of the level 10 much easier, is you have kind of like an anti-tangent button, right? You have a drop down issues list and you can kind of just enforce it. Because are you I'm assuming you're the visionary, or?
Yeah, I'm the visionary.
Okay, so you probably have an integrator who's constantly having to, no tangents, what are you doing? And I don't know.
See, I'm the one doing that though. That's the problem. And for a long time it was everyone else. And then I'm really good at making it feel like we're on the same conversation and we're in this tangent. And I realized that. And then I'm like, it's a huge thing, because we don't realize when you have poorly run meetings, how much time it wastes, but also how much mental energy it wastes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because you're not coming up with solutions.
Right. You're just chasing your tail and talking about the same thing, or you're not talking about the thing anymore at all. That's easily the biggest win, is when someone comes back and they go, oh my gosh, we've been trying to do this and we've been running level 10s. Obviously, we have a lot of clients come over when they're first starting with an implementer, and everyone's familiar before EOS with bad meetings, but they're usually not familiar with a bad level 10, spending 90 minutes trying to do this thing. And then they usually start off on the right foot, they're starting everything from the beginning. But the people who've been trying to do it on their own and then they get into the software, that's easily the biggest win. And then, of course, like you mentioned, just being able to keep everything in one place, and the accountability chart, not trying to make that in PowerPoint or, any number of places. I mean, I regularly have people go, I found you because I was going to throw my computer through the wall if I had to update my accountability chart again. Yeah, I get it. I get that too. too, because you're trying to, kind of use another system for an accountability chart. It's just not built for that. So,
and then I'm assuming it helps to trickle down EOS through a company too, because, as you bring in other groups, you want everyone else running EOS. You don't have one meeting. Do you find that helps the organizations as well? Like, and
that's nearly all I do is client strategy. We've found that, of course, onboarding during your trial, that's the leadership team. And then after that, you have all these teams to add. You have additional users to add. And you run a company, the last thing you want to do is spend a bunch of time teaching people all of this new software. You're like, this isn't even my software. Why am I training everyone? So I actually help with getting down that next level in the accountability chart. And that's where it's kind of like throwing fuel on the fire. You're getting all these results at the leadership team. Why wouldn't you want to get those results at every other team? Why wouldn't you want every meeting in your company to run this like a crisp level 10 where a bunch of issues are solved? Everyone has their marching orders for the week. Everyone's aligned. Everyone's rowing the boat in the same direction. So that is, that's actually my focus. And it's really fun because we get all these teams up and running, and then the leadership team just sees how EOS is full capacity for totally optimizing and revolutionizing the way that their company runs. It's really cool. That's my favorite part. Working with entrepreneurs and helping them to grow their companies is so cool.
And it's great because, I think, when I first started out in it and we started doing it's like, we just think about the leadership team. Then I'm like, we're starting to teach other people. And I'm like, I don't want to teach them EOS. Here go read what the heck is EOS. All right.
It's my first thing I say.
And then it's like, okay, now here's a level 10 meeting. I'm not good at it, but you should be good at it.
Well, I would advise you're not ready yet. If you don't even like level 10s yet, you should probably like them first.
But I'm the one training on it, but that's fantastic. So you train everyone on it. Now, I'm
on
sure
the software, we do. Yeah. We train them on the software exactly, and then help them with finding resource. We don't consult on EOS, but we do train them on the software. Which is, if you're using the software to implement, that's kind of half the thing. So we do intensive training on that to make sure the software is clear and makes everything much easier with implementing.
Nice. And on a side note, I'm going to do a complete. I don't know if this is 180 or like whatever, but you also own your own business. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So you have a woodworking business.
I do.
And tell me how you got into that and what's been going on, because we were talking a little bit about before the show.
Sure. Thanks for bringing it up. So I have two, and I have impeccable timing. So I started them. I had decided I wanted to really kick them off about last early March. So I had moved from Chicago down to South Carolina to buy a place where I could actually have a woodworking shop. I got into woodworking in Chicago. I volunteered at a place that I love called RX Made. They get all reclaimed wood from barns, builds, like anyone who's gutting a house. And then they teach workshops, and they have career opportunities for people in underserved communities. They, get certified in running a forklift and just general job training. And so a whole part of that ecosystem, I got involved with TAing classes where we would do make it, take it classes, like building benches and Adirondack chairs and trays and things like that, serving trays. I got into it because I was in a job where I was staring at a screen all day, and I was going to lose my mind if I didn't go do something with my hands. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people, where they're kind of like, there's like that element missing where they need to go just like stop staring at a screen. And so I was like, I would really like to make this hobby into something a little more. Part of it was I had no one else to give things out to that I kept making. So I moved down here and I started Holtz reclaimed wood. I make charcuterie boards, small home decor. It's all out of salvage and reclaimed wood. I also do larger custom things, like I'm sitting at my dining room table I made. I've made multiple dining room tables and piano benches and all kinds of fun projects. And then I also have Love Your Shelf, which is all floating shelves. And then my vision for that is that brings together a marketplace of small makers. So you can buy a shelf, you can buy some cool stuff for it. all made by small businesses, small independent makers.
Nice. And we'll put links to those. That was Love Your Shelf.
Yeah, loveyourself.com.
That's great. I love that. That's really cool.
Thanks.
And so how are you figuring out marketing now as you're growing all of these businesses?
Well, luckily there's a ton of video content that comes out of marketing. There's lots of stuff that I'm always putting up just like behind the scenes. It's tough, I'll be honest, because I'm just like a one-woman show. And so, when it comes to editing and stuff like that, I'm constantly trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. So the marketing aspect has been me just experimenting, trying things out. I was recently introduced to StoryBrand. So I've been trying to grab some inspiration from that and follow some of those things. That's helpful with marketing, but video's been huge. I'm trying to build an audience on Instagram, and that's been a great community. And then I've actually used EOS for planning and for operating those two. I kind of run a level 10 on just me and myself and I in it on like Sundays.
That's great. That's great because it's like we think of EOS as having to start once you get 3-4 employees or have to be a certain size, but you're ready to grow then, aren't you?
Yeah, well, exactly. I actually was lucky enough to go to the EOS conference last week and saw Gino Wickman, who is fantastic, but he mentioned in it, it's for a certain, size company, 10 to 250. But even if you're starting something, you need to hold yourself accountable. That's half the magic of the level 10. So I created kind of like a little VTO for both, and I created a scorecard for both based on my vision with those two. I have rocks that I've set for myself, and I take to-dos so that I make action items each week. EOS is genius in its simplicity. And so you can use it even if you're running something on your own.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and haven't started your business, go listen to my interview with Gino talking about entrepreneurial leap and getting started, because it's doing that. But like he says, it's like having this planning, having this, but keeping it simple, keeping focused.
Yeah.
He's definitely a master of focus, and you can learn a lot from that. But that's really cool that you're starting it and doing that. And, video, like you said, is super important. I believe that too. It's the easiest
way to tell a story. And everyone has a quality video camera in their pocket now. So
I know
it's, there's no reason to not get started if you have something you want to get after.
That's awesome. So, as we're wrapping up here, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe they're running EOS and they're thinking about the software? Where do you get started? Like, how do you get, obviously you come in and you're not going to be an advisor, but if they're not going to get an implementer, where do you get started with the software?
Well, I would read each book in the Traction series several times, and no joke, you should read them all at least 5 times if you want to run EOS in your business. I've seen people come to it and they've been like referred by a friend who uses it. So make sure you're really familiar with EOS. And then from there, the part that I see is what it stops universally anyone from starting any system like this is they just get into kind of analysis paralysis where they're like, oh, well, I'm going to work on my scorecard. We're not really sure what it's going to be yet. It's like, just get some things down and start measuring them. They might all stink and you might get rid of them. Just pick some new things, like pick a few things for your rocks, like just get started, start running level 10s. Don't keep planning for your next meeting where you're going to plan for another meeting. Start running better meetings now and get in and start running level 10. So that's my advice, is just get some things in there that you can measure that make sense and just get started.
I think that's great advice, because it's like, and like you said, it could be a year from now and you're still building out your charts and not getting anywhere. Version done is better than version none.
Yes, that's exactly right. I see it a lot, and the people who just get after it are usually ahead.
Awesome. So Brittany, what's the best, where do you want people to come learn more about you and follow you?
LinkedIn. Follow me. I'm on LinkedIn, Brittany Myerholtz. I'd love for you to follow along with my woodworking journey. I'm at Holtz Reclaimed Wood Co. on Instagram and at Love Your Shelf Decor on Instagram. Someone snagged my at Love Your Shelf, so you got to.
That happens, but we'll put links to all that in the show notes. And the website's mytractiontools.com.
It is.
You have a free trial, it looks like.
30-day free trial. We'll demo it for you. We'll help you onboard. We'll upload your data. Any training you need, it's all included. We'd love to see you come by.
Awesome. So yeah, if you're going to run EOS, you're thinking about it, you're kind of running it, go check out Traction Tools, mytractiontools.com. I'll put the link down below. But Brittany, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Ian. It was so great meeting you.
It was great to meet you and have you on. And thank you all for taking Brittany and I on your journey. This has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.